First of all, we saw information that it wasn't until September that they started to investigate the P.O. box in Matawan. Remember, the two really offensive ones came from P.O. 126 in Matawan. Nobody we knew in the election lived in Matawan. We had no idea why it would come from Matawan. They discovered that that P.O. box had not been taken out since January of 2006, some 4 or 5 months before the election, and in fact closed. They did in fact interview the person whose name was the last person who had that box, and he was a businessman in Matawan who would use the P.O. box for commercial advertising that he was doing solicitations. And he had nothing to do with Teaneck, didn't know anything about it. They then discovered who, they went to, I didn't tell you this before, but when we saw the address on the Teaneck tax fairness on Cedar Lane, I went to that address. I just wanted to see who the people were. And we went to the address, and we thought it would be an office building. I forgot the numbers on Cedar Lane. It wasn't an office building, it was the UPS store. So the address for Teaneck tax fairness was the UPS store, and the room number on there, 326, was not a room number, it was a box number, where you take out a box at the UPS box store. So the prosecutor discovered that that UPS box store had been taken out by a gentleman by the name of Ron Simoncini. Simoncini, I'm sorry. I constantly call him Simoncini. It's Ron Simoncini. Now, that name was familiar to me because I know Ron Simoncini. Some of you may know I've been very active in the field of rent control in the Teaneck. I was the rent control chairperson of the rent control board for many years, and I've been an active participant in the rent control ordinance. Can you hear me? You can't hear me? I'm talking too fast? That's garbled? Okay. I'm talking too fast, okay. Ron Simoncini was the gentleman who took out the P.O. box that was listed at the UPS store for tax fairness for Teaneck. Is that better? Okay. I knew who Ron Simoncini was. I had been an adversary of him, Simoncini, for many years. I'd seen him in a lot of rent control discussions at the town council and before the rent leveling board in Teaneck. He is a well-known public relations expert who has throughout the years worked for the organized landlord groups in Teaneck. He has been a very effective spokesperson for the landlord's interests before public bodies in Teaneck. Basically speaking against rent control and for liberalization of that order. So I knew who Ron Simoncini was. The prosecutor then took a statement from Ron Simoncini on March 23rd, 2007, some 4 days before Marty and I came to look at the fund. And when I went back to the office after looking at it, I took notes on a legal pad, and I'm going to use those to refresh my memory as to exactly what was said by Mr. Simoncini in this interview with the prosecutor's investigator. First of all, Mr. Simoncini, who was not under oath, not placed under oath, admitted that he had taken out the P.O. box at the UPS store, and that he in fact was and did organize tax fairness for Teaneck. And he was the person who had brought that group together and in fact was the main person in it. He said that in April of 2006, this is the month before the election, he was approached by a person by the name of Howard Purcell, a Teaneck resident who is in fact the owner of Geronimo's on Cedar Lane. He was approached by Howard Purcell to do public relations work for the municipal campaign. Purcell indicated to him that he was working with a number of candidates in the municipal election in Teaneck, and that he asked him to help them to do the public relations work for that campaign. Initially, Simoncini said that he did not do that kind of work against individual candidates, that they didn't get involved in municipal elections against particular candidates, that they were basically lobbying an interest group to lobby for the interests of organized landlords in Teaneck. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Purcell asked him to come to another meeting the next day at Geronimo. And on April 16th, he did in fact go to that meeting at Geronimo's restaurant. There he met Councilman Ellie Katz and Howard Purcell, who were at this meeting together at Geronimo's. And in the conversation there, Ellie Katz said to him that the Teaneck New Beginning slate was the biggest threat to their campaign, that they were the most articulate candidates, and that they could articulate their ideas a lot better than we could, and that they were better organized than us. And we need your help in the campaign literature because you're a public relations expert. Again, Ellie Katz asked for his help doing campaign literature. Again, Simoncini says that he expressed his position that he does not work against particular candidates, that he's only a lobbying person, an interest group, and he is working for landlords. But that he would be interested in helping them in any way in relation to the rent control issue in town. He was asked by Ellie to come to a meeting, another meeting the next day with other people who he was also involved with in this campaign. Simoncini agreed to come to this meeting, and in his original statement to the prosecutor, he said that he was invited to come to the Teaneck Democratic headquarters on River Road in Teaneck. Now, I'm going to, aside from my notes for a second, when we read this, both Marty and I knew that there was no such thing as the Teaneck Democratic headquarters in Teaneck, and we didn't know what that meant. We theorized that he might be talking about the County Democratic headquarters, which is off River Street in Hackensack. He might have been confused. I'm going to jump into a later conversation that I had after all this with Ron Simoncini himself over the phone after I read this and talked to him. He said that that was wrong, that he did not mean Teaneck Democratic headquarters. What he meant was Ellie Katz's campaign headquarters, and he described that to me over the phone as West Englewood Avenue in Teaneck. So he went to a meeting at Ellie Katz's campaign headquarters on West Englewood Avenue in Teaneck, and there he met with Elnatan Rudolph and Ellie Katz. And again, they sat around a table, and again, both Katz and Rudolph were talking to him and said that the TNB candidates were the greatest threat to their election, to both of their election, and also they're the greatest threat to landlord interests in town because they were in favor of strong rent control. Both Katz and Rudolph indicated to Simoncini, according to Simoncini, that they did not want to get involved in public comments on the rent control ordinance, and that they wanted Simoncini and his group, a group that he would form, to get involved with the anti-rent control literature that they wanted to put out during the campaign, but they did not want that literature to go out over their name. They also discussed other issues in the campaign with Mr. Simoncini, which he did not specify in the statement.
Excuse me, Ron. If you could just specify once more, where's this information coming from?
This is coming from a statement given to an investigator at the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office by Ron Simoncini. Okay? Anybody? Okay. I'm sorry?
Not under oath.
Correct. That's correct. Now, Mr. Simoncini responded to this request that he would not get involved in individual issues against individual candidates, but that he would like to and agree to help them on the rent control issue. Now, at that point, then he says, and he uses the word they, and I had to quote that here. They then asked me to get involved in preparing, and I'm quoting this, open quote, illegal campaign literature against the TNB candidates. And I quoted that because he used those words in his statement, the words illegal campaign literature, and he did not further describe what he meant by that, except using that term, illegal campaign literature, against the TNB candidates. He says at that time he refused telling both Katz and Rudolph that it would be illegal, that the type of literature that they were discussing would be illegal, and that he would not get involved in illegal acts. He would, though, again, agree to help them with the rent control material.